Can you guess who I am or what book I'm reading? Poor Duncan just wants to do some colouring, but when he opens the box of crayons, all he finds are letters, each saying the same thing. We quit. Beige is tired of playing second fiddle to brown. Blue needs a break from colouring all that water, while pink just wants to be used. Green has no complaints, but orange and yellow are not speaking to each other. What is Duncan to do? So who do you think I am, and what book do you think I might be reading?
There it is, Danny called to his steed. It shan't be long now till the princess is freed. Princess, oh princess, please let down your hair. We've come here to save you, but can't find the stairs. Danny shouted and called, but there came no reply. So he sat on the ground and he started to cry. Just then an idea pinged in Dinosaur's head. Perhaps they could fly up the tower instead, with fairy tale creatures deep down in its gut. Its brain made a wish involving its butt. It knew there was only one thing it could do to save the princess it needed to. Pooh! Now can you guess who I am and what story I'm reading? I'm going to read you an extract from my favourite book. George sat himself down at the table in the kitchen. He was shaking a little. Oh, how he hated Grandma. He really hated that horrid, witchy old woman. All of a sudden, he had a tremendous urge to do something about her. Something whopping. Something absolutely terrific. A real shocker. A sort of explosion. He wanted to blow away that witchy smell that hung around her in the next room. He may have only been 8 years old, but he was a brave little boy. He was ready to take this old woman on. I'm not going to be frightened by her, he said softly to himself. But he was frightened. That's why he wanted to suddenly explode her away. Have you guessed who I am and what I'm reading?
This is a fairy tale. It's set in a mythical land of cornucopia, which is ruled by King Fred, where there is a monster that is said to inhabit the marshes of the north. It is used to explain the disappearance of sheep and people that wander into the marshes, and it's used to scare children. This book tells of a story of an adventure that will test two children's bravery to the limit. Are you brave enough to read this tale? Have you worked out who I am and what I am reading?
Hello, I'm going to read you an extract from my favourite story. Once more, she found herself in the long hall and close to the little glass table. Now I'll manage better this time, she said to herself, and began by taking the little golden key and unlocking the door that led into the garden. Then she set to work nibbling at the mushroom till she was about a foot high. Then she walked down a little passage, and then she found herself at last in the beautiful garden, among the bright flower beds and the cool fountains. Can you guess who I am? And can you guess what story I'm reading from?
Hello everyone, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my favourite book. See if you can guess what I'm reading. My favourite book is all about a very small insect who likes to eat a lot of food. Some might say he is a very hungry insect. The character in my book turns into a beautiful butterfly at the end of the story. He eats lots of fruit, and he even eats pages of the book on his journey. Have you worked out who I am and what I'm reading?
Can you guess who I am and what my story is? My story is about someone who looks tasty and smells good. He can run so fast that no one can keep up with him. He is very cheeky and goads everyone who tries to catch him. Eventually, someone sly, just like me, plays a trick on him. And that is the end for the fast runner.
Hello. My story is a very colourful story about a large animal. In the story, he stands out from the crowd. It is a story about how we can celebrate our differences, and everybody doesn't have to be the same to fit into the group. Have you worked out who I am and what I am reading?
There is no lake at Camp Green Lake. There was once a very large lake here, the largest lake in Texas. That was over 100 years ago. Now it is just a dry, flat wasteland. There used to be a town of Green Lake too. The town shriveled up and dried long ago with the lake and the people who lived there. During the summer, the daytime temperature hovers around 95 degrees in the shade. If you can find any shade, there's not so much shade in a big dry lake. The only two trees are the old oak trees on the eastern edge of the lake. A hammock is stretched between the two trees and a log cabin stands behind that. The campers are forbidden to lie in the hammock. It belongs to the warden. The warden owns the shade. Have you guessed who I am and what I'm reading?
I wonder who that could be. It can't be the milkman. It can't be the boy from the grocer's shop. And it can't be Daddy. Coming for tea? Let's open the door and see. Have you worked out who I am? I am what I am reading.
Hello everybody, I'm going to tell you about my favourite book. See if you can guess what I'm reading. My book is about an animal, a very, very tall animal. My animal would love to join in with all the other animals at the jungle dance in Africa. But everyone knows my animal can't dance. Or can they? Lots of other animals laughed at my animal because he wasn't the best at dancing. Until a little cricket told him to find a different song. And when he did, he danced all night long. All the other animals were amazed and asked him how he could dance that way. Have you worked out who I am and what I'm reading?
A lot of hairy-faced men there are around nowadays. When a man grows hair all over his face, it is impossible to tell what he really looks like. Perhaps that's why he does it. He'd rather you didn't know. Then there's the problem of washing. When the hairy ones wash their faces, it must be as big as a job as when you wash your hair on our heads. So what I want to know is this. How often do all these hairy men wash their faces? Is it only once a week? And do they shampoo it? Do they use a hairdryer? Do they rub hair tonic to stop their faces from going bald? Do they go to a barber to have their hairy faces cut and trimmed? Or do they do it themselves? In front of the bathroom mirror with nail scissors? I don't know. Can you guess who I am and the book?
Mr. and Mrs. Dursley of number 4 Privet Drive were proud to say that they were perfectly normal, thank you very much. They were the last people you'd expect to be involved in anything strange or mysterious, because they just didn't hold with such nonsense. Mr. Dursley was the director of a firm called Grunnings, which made drills. He was a big, beefy man with hardly any neck, although he did have a very large moustache. Mrs. Dursley was thin and blonde and had nearly twice the usual amount of neck, which came in very useful as she spent so much of her time craning over garden fences spying on the neighbours. The Dursleys had a small son called Dudley, and in their opinion there was no finer boy anywhere.
In a dry, dusty place where the sand-spotted road stood a mighty flat rock, all troddy and old, and under that rock, in a tiny full house, lived the littlest, quietest, meekest brown mouse. Fed up of being ignored by the other animals, Mouse wishes he could roar like lion. But as he discovers, even the biggest, bossiest people are scared sometimes, and even the smallest creatures can have the heart of a lion. Have you worked out who I am and what I am reading?
A mouse took a stroll through the deep dark wood. A fox saw the mouse, and the mouse looked good. Where are you going to, little brown mouse? Come and have lunch in my underground house. It's terribly kind of you, fox, but no, I'm going to have lunch with a Gruffalo. A Gruffalo? What's a Gruffalo? A Gruffalo? Why didn't you know? He has terrible tusks and terrible claws and terrible teeth in his terrible jaws. Where are you meeting him? Here by these rocks. And his favourite food is roasted fox. Can you guess who I am and what I'm reading?